Hey everybody, my name is Jay Levine. I'm gonna get us started tonight. Thanks to our co-host organizations, Taos United, Taos County Democratic Party, Taos Progressives, and others. Happy to welcome you all to our second town hall prior to the upcoming New Mexico legislative session with Representatives Susan Herrera and Kristina Ortez. This legislative session, as many are so important. Democracy requires all of us to pay attention and participate. This year, we can fully cooperate from home. We can fully participate from home. We'll be able to get into all the different committee hearings. It'll be on the legislative website. We'll make that available to everybody so they can know where to go to kind of get to all those committee hearings. So you don't have to go anywhere to participate this year. It won't be as fun for a lot of us, but it will allow a lot more of New Mexico to participate. So let's hope everybody does that. Because as we all know, democracy is not a spectator sport. You have to be active in it. You have to actually show up and talk to your representatives, tell them what you think is important, and have conversations. So listen and talk to your legislators. So here's how this meeting is going to go. We're going to start off with each of our guests giving us a short intro into their top legislative priorities, followed by 4 sections of questions of about 15 minutes each. We're going to have a poll that allows for you to participate in. Those polls will take place at the end of every section. And what we're going to do is kind of ask you for what you think were the important things, the issues that you want to support in that section. Okay. And we're going to do a test poll in just a minute so you guys can all see how that's going to work. We'll be asking some of the questions that you all have emailed to us. And in addition, please, in the chat, feel free to post questions. We have at least 2 folks in our team here who will be watching the chat. They'll be looking for questions and they'll be feeding the questions to myself and my co-host tonight, Cristy Holden. All right, so please feel free. The chat button's on the bottom of your screen. As I'm sure for everybody or almost everybody, this is not your first Zoom, so you should know how to use the chat by now. But again, the bottom of your screen, click on chat and make sure you're sending it to everyone. See what else we've got here. So for tonight's town hall, you're all muted, except of course, those of us who are talking, myself and the 2 representatives and Cristy Holden. And we're gonna keep you all muted so we can have more orderly conversations here. But please, again, use the chat to talk amongst yourselves and to ask questions. So we're gonna start with a poll in just a moment now. What you're gonna do is click on the things that you wanna select, right? The different issues that are important to you. And I forget what the topic this is, we'll all see in a moment. And then what you'll do is when you're done with that, click on the button at the bottom to submit it. All right. So here's a poll. Lots of folks are voting. That's great. So this is what's going to happen through the rest of the voting. We have 4 more times tonight. We'll let this go. So we'll typically let this go about 45 seconds or so, and we're about 30 seconds in. So just a little longer. And those of us who are running can see that 58 out of the 72 people who are currently on have already voted. Thank you, that's great. Obviously, this is more of a test. It's not really as important as the other ones, although only 46% so far have selected Chile, which is shocking to me. But okay, if that's long enough, let's go ahead and end the polling and we'll show the results. This is what you'll see. Okay, so this is what you'll see as we go through the other 4 sections. These are what the results are going to look like. Great. Thanks, everybody. So we're going to go ahead and get started with the rest. And let me just take it off of my screen here. I'm going to add in Representative Susan Herrera, and hopefully cool. And Susan, if you want to get us started, please about 5 minutes or so, and then we'll hear from Representative Ortez.
Okay, thanks. This is a very impressive group and actually a very impressive a Zoom meeting with polling and everything. So I'd like to congratulate all the people who put it together, and I'd like to thank you for this invitation. I typically don't introduce a lot of bills. I'm active in a lot of bills on the floor, but I'll just go through my major bills and the bills that have really been taking a lot of time. I'm going to introduce, that predatory lending bill to take down that rate from 175% down to 36. I think we could pass it. The Senate's changed. That's going to be huge. And I think we could come up with the votes. I think it could be a bipartisan bill in the House. I really do. So we'll see if we can do that. I'm also reintroducing another water infrastructure bill, and that is, here's what happens. They did legislation years ago to create something called a tribal infrastructure water fund and a Las Colonias infrastructure fund, where the state helps those parts of the state with a special amount of money. But they left out all the other rural unincorporated parts of the state. So 24.2 million a year goes to the tribal communities, and 24.2 goes to everybody who's 150 miles from the border. But the rest of rural unincorporated is not covered. I'm asking them to devote us and eventually get it up to a 4.5% rate on the severance tax bond. I'll have a big fight on this, but I don't always take bills that I think are going to win. You know, sometimes I realize on a tough bill, and especially on a money bill that's gonna threaten people's capital outlay, I might as well say it. People get real nervous, and so that's kind of what I'm doing with the water infrastructure fund. But that's what I'm trying to do. I've been working with a group of 8 legislators. We've been working since, oh my gosh, since like April of last year. We've been working 2 to 6 hours a week. It started with a group of teachers and those of us who are interested in education to put together a broadband bill, because we all saw the mess that happened as soon as everybody had a lockdown and kids had to get online and do schooling. And you know, we've talked and talked about broadband infrastructure, but nobody's done it. And if you really look at the legislation and how the state is, we have 2 people working on broadband and no money. There's a reason we don't have good internet access in this state, and it's called staffing and funding. So we have put together a major bill with 3 companion bills to put together better broadband access in this state. And thank you, Luis Reyes, who I see is also on the call, because he's been helping. And it's a constant battle to get this legislation done. And then I have 2 memorials that I'm going to put because I need studies. One is to, you know, Taos has the Matanza that is no longer, you know, functioning. It's called the Mobile Livestock Slaughter Unit. You know, it's this tractor trailer that goes around to local farms and helps small ranchers or small farmers process their meat. And I'm going to do a study so that we can see how much it would cost if we did that statewide, if we had certain areas. And it's easy to get the 500,000 to build a tractor trailer. What's hard to do is the sustaining 1 million that you need to operate this thing. So I think if we had 7 different regions and did the operating costs, it'd probably be about 7 million a year. Again, do I know how I'm going to get that money or where I'm going to get that money? I don't know, or where it's going to be, you know, cited. So it'll be a study to ask the Department of Ag and the Livestock Board to come up with a study to tell us how we can do this. Did I go over? I have an agency bill on water that I'm carrying for the Environment Department along with Doreen Gallegos, and that will be you know, we do free sample testings for water in this state. That fund is run out. We had a tax in 1993 for 3 cents for 1,000 gallons. For every 1,000 gallons, we're moving that up to 5 cents for every 1,000 gallons. I really worried about doing this, but this fund is going to run out at the end of this December. So if we don't do this, we won't have a way to, you know, have free testing for people and domestic water associations, all those people. So I talked to my largest mutual domestic water system. It would be an increase of about $200 for them. So I don't feel too bad about carrying that bill. It's important. Sometimes you just have to take care of business. So those are the main bills I'm working on. I usually have about 5 or 6. At the last minute, somebody might come to me and say, we can only carry 5 this session. It's so difficult. We can only carry 5, and we figure maybe if we get lucky and we can just limit everybody to 5, you know, maybe we can get through the session, because I don't see how we're going to do it any other way. It's going to be a very difficult session. So we're going to have to count on you guys. I'm over. Sorry. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative Herrera. And now I'm going to introduce here Kristina Ortez, our newest legislator. Christina,
Thank you,
please go
Jay.
ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, Representative Herrera. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Really, the name of the game for the Democratic caucus and for this administration is on recovery. So there are going to be a lot of COVID-19 relief bills, that are really focused on helping families, on helping our business community get back on their feet. There are a range of bills. I don't know the details of all of them right now, but that's really what we're going to be focused on. As the representative just said, we've got a limit of 5 bills, and that's happening on the House side. The Senate is a little bit different, but there are fewer senators, so they're not bound to these same rules, and we're doing this so that we can really just focus on on COVID-19, so that we can on relief, so that we can reduce the time that we're spent debating on lots of bills. So we have to focus ourselves. There's going to be a lot of bills on infrastructure, especially in rural communities, especially on broadband. Everybody knows what we're all dealing with, all of us. If you guys were in some of my earlier Zooms, the struggles that I have with broadband. So those are things that are really, really important to the caucus. So we're going to push those things forward. I have 5 bills already. They're highly technical, mostly agency bills, working with energy, minerals, natural resources, and with environment, economic development. So the first one is some LEDA amendment, so that we can get support for construction, retrofits, upgrades to facilitate some clean energy stuff. Highly technical. I encourage you guys to chat with me offline about. I'm still learning all the details of what that is. I'm really excited to work with NMAA, New Mexico Aesthetic Association, on a bill to allow for more funding for legal support for acequia associations as they go through the implementation process of the settlements. There's a lot of support that individual acequias need, so that they can work through that. So that's another bill that I'll be doing. Updates on sustainable building tax credits for retrofits that install EV or broadband, and bringing that sustainable building tax credit up to code, really to sort of meet what the code already exists. So that's a specific agency request. I have a FEMA flood control bill that would bring the state up to code on what FEMA requires, so that the state and municipalities can continue to get flood insurance. These are sort of really highly technical bills. I had this idea of like, I'll be introducing legislation where everybody gets money and the environment is fixed, but really lawmaking is about these sort of really highly technical things sometimes. So I'm learning a lot about that. The last one I think might be challenging, and this is a utility arrears repayment plan. And I look forward to working with Luis on this. I'd heard that the co-ops were supportive. So to help families who have not been able to pay their utility bills due to COVID, that this would provide some relief to those families and allow them to pay back their bills and what they owe in a timely fashion. So it really does reflect my interest. I don't know exactly what's happening with capital outlay, but I do know that I want to make sure that we have funding for behavioral health. I want to make sure that we really focus on economic development and helping our local our local folks here on getting supports for economic development and early childhood. That's not going to be a capital outlay issue, but that is something that is a focus of the Democratic caucus for sure. Yeah, whew, a lot.
Great, thank you. It's great to see everybody here today. Great to see you too. We're going to get started in our first section today. I'm going to do a little bit of reading, then we'll have some discussion. So the first part is New Mexico's dependence on oil and gas has long subjected our state to either economic booms or busts, the most recent of which has hit a frightening new low because of the pandemic. Even before COVID, analysts and economists have been predicting a collapse of the fossil fuel industry within the next 5 years due to lower costs of renewable energy, increasing costs of fossil fuel extraction, glowing climate concerns, and electrification of transportation. New Mexico must find new revenue streams and diversify our economy starting now. So the first question here is from Ann Ellen Toomey in El Prado. New Mexico has an urgent need to reduce its dependence on the gas and oil industry for financial and environmental reasons. What are your plans to work towards economic diversification in the upcoming legislative session? So either of you want to take that first?
I can start. Yeah, it may sound small, but doing these mobile livestock slaughter units is one way of keeping food local and available, and really supporting local ranchers, small ranchers and small farms. It doesn't sound like much, but I was talking to a rancher today, Mick Trujillo out of Abiquiu, and I was telling him about this. He says, Susan, I have to drive to Colorado to slaughter animals. And I just found out I just have one steer and 2 pigs that I need to slaughter. I can't get a pig slaughter appointment until August of this year, and I can't get a steer appointment until January of next year. That's how much infrastructure we need in this state. We don't have local infrastructure to support farming and agriculture communities. I really diversifying. I think the broadband bill, if we can get accessible and affordable internet to every house, that opens up that whole area of remote business. So that's another thing I'm doing. And again, you have to have water. All of these things are so basic in New Mexico, but we don't have it. So it's really working on kind of catching up, I think, with very basic services. And Kristina's right. It is about recovery for this session and doing the best we can. Here's what you guys should know. You probably don't know this because I just found out about it. The stimulus package is going to deliver an additional $4.7 billion to this state this year. I mean, it's going to come in. You also probably don't know, because I just found out yesterday, that Michelle Lujan, our governor, is going to be the chair of the Federal Infrastructure Committee, appointed by Joe Biden to that position. That is really going to help us with this infrastructure on water. Really, it is about water, electricity, broadband. It is really about infrastructure so that we can grow this economy. And I'll be quiet.
Thanks, Susan. Representative Ortez?
That's exactly it. Focus on the infrastructure as the, base layer for economic development, and ensuring that our caregivers have good access to quality childcare, and family supports. That's economic development. I was on a town hall today with New Mexico First, and we talked a lot about the health of our community. You can't have a healthy economy unless you have a healthy community, right? So investments in public health, in mental and behavioral health, that's infrastructure, and that's critical for economic development and economic diversity. I'm sure we're going to talk about the legalization of marijuana. If you want me to talk about it now, I will. Or I'll wait until we get that question.
Yeah,
I hope
we'll be there in just a minute.
Okay,
great. And I love hearing about kind of keeping food local. That to me is one of the most important things we can do, both for our economy, but also for climate crisis, keeping food local. So mobile matanza is awesome. I think we need to do more to keep to be able to grow foods year round here. Thanks. So let's see. The next question here is, the New Mexico tax code has hundreds of tax breaks known as tax expenditures that benefit corporations and businesses, and a few that benefit the public, such as the exemptions of food and drugs from the GRT, the gross receipts tax. The majority of these corporate tax breaks have been shown over time to have had no benefits in terms of attracting new businesses, creating new jobs, or bringing new money into the state. So will you support the repeal of tax breaks to corporations that have no benefit to either the state and the public, and have these corporations pay their fair share? Kristina, do you want to go first? Susan? Okay.
I can go. I served on tax and for the first year I served on tax and revenue, and I always laughed at it because it was the committee where all the suits came to town, and then I served on land grants, and that's where like all the people came to town. So I had totally opposite people at both hearings. It's interesting if you I think our biggest problem, frankly, is we have a very poor population. What you need to know is 47% of our people are on Medicaid in this state. That is a huge number. So when we try to tax people or try to tax anybody, it's hard. It's hard. We don't have major corporations in the state. I mean, we are, you know, before COVID, we were the 7th state in job creation. I mean, that's what you should know. Michelle Lujan Grisham did a great job. We were the 7th state in job creation, and it just, everything kind of just shut down, as we all know. Yeah, I'm for going against corporations and taxing them more. It's harder to do than you think. And they're really, most of our tax benefits go to, well, mostly we try to get it out to the people. I think we've done a better job this year. We're still trying that in the Recovery Act. And I see my time's up. So I'll turn it over to you, Christine.
Thank you for yielding your time. You know, corporations should pay their fair share, period. I believe in that. I also believe that we need to support our working families and working singles to, you know, get the tax credits that they need if they are lower income. That's really, really important. I think looking at, you know, tax credits in general and bringing them, you know, in up to code. Right now, there are folks that are getting tax credits for, you know, for things that are already in law that they should be doing anyway, that they have to by law do anyway, but they're getting some tax credits for that. That's, you know, we need to look at that because we do need to spread our wealth in this community, in this state. So yeah, yes, I support, you know, looking at that corporate tax structure. I don't believe in taxing food. We can't do that, but there are other ways that we can bring revenue into this state by other things that can be taxed. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So the next statement I was going to ask about is, yeah, there have been recent proposals to raise revenue by eliminating the tax exemptions for food and prescription drugs, despite the fact that these taxes disproportionately harm the poor. Proponents of this plan suggest that a tax refund could be used to offset the burden on the poor, but many in our community live paycheck to paycheck and cannot wait for a tax refund to put food on the table. Will you pledge to oppose a food tax in any form?
I'll start. I've opposed it in the past. What you should know, I'm just giving you both sides of the picture here, you guys. What you should know, the elimination of the food tax, what it really did to our local communities like Taos and you know, all of them, Chama and Espanola, they lost huge amounts in gross receipts. I mean, we live in poor communities. What do people buy in poor communities? They buy food. I mean, so when we did that, and then that eliminates a lot of services at the local level that they used to provide. They had to cut back on those regional budgets. So it is, I mean, yeah, no one wants to tax food, but we really need to figure out a way to, we were supposed to supplement those communities. And I saw that the mayor was on here. I know you guys got slammed by the elimination of the food tax just in services. So you do one thing, it creates another thing. So do I want to tax poor people? No. And I don't, and I haven't really seen anybody do really specific figures on that. I don't think anybody's going to put tax on food again at the Capitol, but I do think we need to find new ways of revenue to support services in the state. And that's what I'm trying to figure out.
Thank you.
If anybody has any ideas, let me know.
We're going to talk about one in a minute. We can't tax food and medicine. It has a huge impact on our lower income families. We've got to find a different way. We've got to find a better way. And that's where I am.
Great. Thank you. And so we have a couple more questions in this section. I'm hoping we can get through them a little more quickly so we don't miss out on some important subjects. The first one I just want to hit again, we were just talking about gross receipts tax, right? New Mexico statewide ranks about 15th in the nation for sales tax. And some states in New Mexico have the highest GRTs in the country, right? I'm sorry, some cities and counties have the highest GRTs in the country. El Prado Water and Sanitation District is one of the highest ones, right? So the question is, shouldn't we be working to lower GRT or a lower sales tax and find revenues elsewhere? And I say GRT versus sales tax, you all know what that means, the difference is, right? Based on what we tax and what services we tax.
Well, I'll start, Kristina, because I've been around a
Thank
little
you.
bit more. These are the hardest questions to ask, to answer. I talked to Stephanie Chardon Clark, who's our head of DFA, Department of Finance, and what she will tell you is that really it looks like we all want to change around the GRT. And I said, well, if we did it right, maybe we could, lower everybody's GRT to 3% and do this and this and this. And some people will say that, but nobody's ever done the numbers that come up and really support that. So we're all for lowering GRT, but I just know how cities and counties are struggling. I mean, Rio Arriba, a huge county, the size of Massachusetts, has a $12 million budget a year. Imagine how they operate. I don't think people know how poor our cities and counties are. So I'm actually, and when I give out money, when I give out capital outlay, I have a lot of, communities that aren't cities, so that I can't give them any money. So I'm looking at maybe making a new category for like Dixon could be a community and maybe have a tax base locally to support the local library. And then I could help them with capital outlay money. I mean, there are a lot of problems in our tax law. I'm just going to tell you, I don't have any easy answers. If anybody has any advice on this, please send it. Please send it.
Thank you.
Please, yeah, I know how dependent our, town of Taos is on GRT, huge chunk of its budget, 80 to 90%, depending on the year, sometimes more, comes from GRT revenue. So, that's what we're working with. So, if we look at GRT, reducing GRT to support our working folks and businesses, it will take a cut at the town. So we have to think of, other ways to increase revenue, like looking at, increased lodgers tax, fees for Airbnbs, which the town is implementing. When we need to look at that at the county level, so the town and the county municipalities can have more access to revenue if we're looking at a GRT, decrease. I hope to be on tax and rev, but I don't know what I'm going to be on yet. I really want to learn the ins and outs. And yeah, it's probably not going to happen, but I really want to learn the ins and outs of our tax code. I do find it fascinating. So we just have to be mindful that you want good roads, you want things that are happening in the town and the county, that comes from, GRT. So how do we bring in the revenue into our communities?
Thank you. Thank you. So we have two more questions in this section. Hopefully they're not easy questions, but hopefully we can get through them. So the first one is last year, the New Mexico legislature received a bill to legalize recreational cannabis. And although this could be a revenue source for the state, it did not make it to the floor. The majority, 70% in a recent survey of New Mexicans, want the bill to pass. State revenues are estimated at $58 million in the first year. Counties and cities would also be allowed to add sizable revenues from the sale of legalized cannabis. Will you vote in favor of this bill?
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, but this is what's really important for you all to know. There are three huge things that need to happen in this bill, right? The focus needs to be, sort of how we legalize, right? And you need to do it in a way. I was just on a 2-hour town hall about this too, with this bill sponsor. So I learned a lot, right? But you need to do it in a way that doesn't kill the medical recreation, the medical program, right? That's really, really important. We've learned a lot from that. We've got to keep that intact. We've got to ensure that racial equity is a huge part of this, and people, mostly people of color, are, have been put in jail for marijuana offenses, right? So let's make sure that those folks, are released and also are allowed to work in the industry going forward. And, you need good taxes and good regulation of the system. There's a cannabis control board that is being proposed. The taxes are somewhere between 16 and 20%, right? So the bill sponsors are really careful about not giving dollar amounts, but some of the numbers are pretty staggering. Like they're talking about 300,000 jobs potentially over the course of several years. It's pretty it's what needs to happen, but needs to be done right. and it needs to be done with equity in mind. And also, you know, there's of course going to be something about, like, you know, the local jurisdictions having a lot of say in local planning and zoning, having a say in the, you know, where those dispensaries are sited. So I'm in favor. Let's do
I
it
would
right.
just like to say we also, it's going to be really hard to protect small producers. That's a real important part of this legislation. How do we, you know, we have these huge companies come in and do these huge things, but really it's,
Right.
how do you protect the small producers, the people that are growing off acequias, and that's a big issue that we have to make sure is in that legislation too.
We talked a lot about that's really, can I just interject here and just
please.
we talked a lot about water, right? And if you're going to register to be a producer, you need to prove that you have those water rights. And I think that there's a lot of discussion right now with acequias, you know, with water banking, and you can't do flood irrigation on marijuana. So how do you manage that? You know, it's really important for our northern communities, you know, that have a lot of water. So that's, you know, a huge issue that the bill sponsors are working through it.
And if I could just suggest, one of the things that needs to be in there when we talk about water is that they require to have methods that are low water usage methods. Like you were saying, no flooding, none of that. They should have kind of like the highest tech irrigation methods, so we're not wasting water.
In fact, Andrea Romero is putting in a bill, which is very, very exciting, that makes folks take into account water users, you know, climate change, the impacts of climate change, right? So it's really, these are the kinds of things that we need to be talking about, protecting our water resources in every way.
Chris Chandler also has a bill out of Los Alamos that what you've seen is some people go into a community, use water rights or access water rights that really aren't theirs, but really use it all, and really violate acequia agreements. And there's really nobody to go in and monitor that. So she has legislation to remedy that problem.
Thank you. We'll try to get through this. We have one more question in this section. It's about public banking. North Dakota has had a public bank for 101 years, and enormous multiplier effects help state infrastructure and local economies. A public bank for New Mexico could permanently lift our state out of trenchant poverty while simultaneously helping fund social justice and climate initiatives. The Association of New Mexico Credit Unions, 42 members, support the establishment of a state bank. Unfortunately, the Independent Community Bankers Association opposes this proposal. Credit unions see state banks as a partnership for building infrastructure and funding packages for community needs. The independent community bankers could also be partners in this plan, but instead see a state bank as competition. I'm going to skip the rest of this for a sec. Community banks hold about $12 billion in assets. A state bank funded at $50 million could leverage that for $500 million in directed loans for needs and infrastructure, such as rural broadband, as we've talked about already, and allow local banks to participate in the bonding for such projects. So the question is, will you support Senator Steinborn and Lieutenant Governor Morales in supporting legislation to create a public bank for New Mexico?
I've always thought that was a great idea. They were talking about it last legislature, but it didn't go anywhere. So I think it has a real chance this year. So yeah,
I'm learning more about it. I don't know enough about the legislation. There are lots of phone calls that have been made to me recently about this, and I am going to chat with Angela about the public banking. I missed it. There was a town hall today. I was on the economic development.
There's 5,000 town halls.
You know, I'm supportive in concept. I've also heard from some folks at NMFA. They say no way. So
bankers will say no way.
Details. Of course, bankers will say no way. Most bankers, not all bankers.
You're right. I should be there.
So I need to know the ins and the outs of this bill, and I encourage folks to get in touch with me.
And so we should all do that. Thanks, Kristina.
You should do that. Yeah.
So we have a poll coming up right now, please. So go ahead and vote on any or all of the items here that you support, things that you are in favor of. So vote on one, vote on all of them, whatever you want to do.
It doesn't allow you to choose all of them.
Oh, you can only choose one.
Maybe it's just me.
It does say choose all that apply. I'm not sure why.
I can just do one. I could just do one, Jay.
Okay, thanks. We'll have somebody take a look at that.
Let it be noted that all of them.
Me
I
too,
would have
all of
chosen
them.
Both in
if I
favor of
could
all
have.
of them. Thank you. Good to hear. All right, so let's go ahead and end the polling and show the results. So since we can't vote on all of them, and I've seen a few people in chat say you can only vote on one, we'll figure out what the problem
Yeah,
with that is.
we can redo it. We'll redo
Okay.
it. Okay. But go ahead and move
So
to
share
the
results,
next
please.
session. Yeah.
Okay, while we're doing that, I'll get set up for the next one here. And we're going to bring up Cristy
Wow,
Holden.
pretty
She's going
even.
to be in charge of the next session there. Cristy, whoops, hang on a second. Let me grab
The
Cristy here.
chat is full of amazing ideas. Thank you. These are really, really good things to consider.
Hey,
Great. Cristy.
So we're going to race through this as much as you'll let me. You've already mentioned the Working Families Tax Credit. This provides a break for hardworking, low-income families, many of whom have been especially hard hit by the pandemic. So if most of this money, 97%, is returned to families with children, and most of it goes right back into local communities and our local economy. Increasing this tax credit would help families and our local economies get back on track. Will you vote for an increase in the Working Families Tax Credit? Yes or no, please?
Yes,
Okay, that was good. I like how fast you did that. That's great. The next one is we're going to talk about Health Security Act, and I'm pretty sure you both heard of this. Last year, the legislature passed a memorial to provide for a study of the impact on the Health Security Act. This follows 25 years of preparation, studies, stakeholder meetings. This year, a proposal seeks funding for the planning and implementation of a full 3-year rollout of New Mexico Health Security Plan. The question is, many people have lost their health insurance during the pandemic as a result of losing a job. The response from the federal government has been inadequate. Are you in support of the New Mexico Health Security Act to guarantee health insurance to all New Mexicans? And can you help speed up the process?
well,
Okay.
I voted for the study, and yeah, I'm in favor of this bill. I don't know what's going to happen. I haven't seen the numbers yet. I don't serve on the health committee, so I'm serving on appropriations and ag and water resources is where I'll be. So, but it's interesting. I listed 3 things that I thought were really important that are coming up that I'm really tracking, and it includes the New Mexico Bank, the Health Security Act, and the dignity in dying, or the right to life. So those are really important to me. So I'm tracking this closely. I'm waiting to see what the final legislation looks like.
Thank you, Susan. How about you, Kristina?
Yeah, I support it. And it is a priority of the Democratic House Caucus as well to ensure that there's affordable health insurance, lower prescription drugs, and expansion of Medicaid, Medicare for all. These are the kinds of things that our caucus really supports. I truly support it. We need it.
Good, thank you. Our next question is about the Food and Agricultural Omnibus Bill. In the time of climate change and this pandemic, economic fragility, the Food and Ag Omnibus Bill seeks to address New Mexico's agricultural infrastructure by creating plans for modernizing food production, distribution, and transportation, and expanding investment in data and information hub sharing. Do you favor this broad statewide effort to increase sustainable food production and support our agricultural heritage? Kristina, you're up.
That's going to be really hard for me. I'm kidding. Oh my God! Of course, of course, of course. Well, so here's, but I've asked some folks about it. Who is the sponsor of this incredible comprehensive bill? Is there a sponsor?
Not that we have seen.
No, okay, because I have not heard anybody talk about it. So absolutely, we need to make investments in our local food security. We need to make investments in protecting water and protecting land. We need to support our farmers. All of those things in light of climate change, in light of drought. Absolutely, let's do it. Please, if you hear about the person who is introducing this legislation, let me know as soon as you find out, because I was talking with Susan earlier, and we're like, what? Who's doing this? It's amazing.
We'll find out and we'll get back to you.
It could be amazing if we knew the details.
I think New Mexico first led the charge, Christina, I found out.
Yes.
So it's really, you know, New Mexico first picked a topic every year, and then they work on it. So
Okay.
this has become very apparent that we you know, that our agricultural community is provides 20 million in Rio Arriba County. That's what you, whatever you call it, that's how much they provide to our economy. And that's about the money we know about. Okay. In agriculture, there's a huge underground economy. So you could probably bump that up to 30 million if you really want to think about it. So it's a huge producer in rural communities. And I think as a state, again, as Jay was saying, we need locally produced food, and we need to keep it local, and we need to keep it safe, and everything we can do to make that happen, we should do.
Yeah.
Great.
New
Thank
Mexico
you.
first highlighted food security and investments in local agriculture and state-based incentives and behavioral mental health
Yes.
supports as the, you know, underlying, you know, the foundational supports for economic development. So,
Good.
you know,
Good.
clearly it's what we need.
I'm going to switch to education for a moment here. The question, well, the lead-in is amendments for an additional 1% from the Land Grant Permanent Fund for Early Child Development and Education. This would favor the first 3 to 5 years of a baby's life, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to either maximize brain development to learn, or it can limit a child's learning potential for the rest of their life. We know high-quality early childhood education programs work to increase kids' success at every grade level, lower the dropout rates, crime and drug use, and lead to better paying jobs in the long term. Some say that New Mexico cannot afford to take additional money from the land grant funds, but our failure to prepare every young brain to learn is actually wasting the money we're already spending. Will you vote to allow the public to decide on an amendment to the New Mexico Constitution to allow a 1% increase in distribution from the Land Grant Permanent Fund for early childhood programs?
I will.
You're so easy.
I know. I mean, I have it. I should give you some more information. I first introduced home visiting about 15 years ago to the state legislature. We got the first $1 million. I'd raised $1 million locally. We got another $1 million match to begin home visiting in 3 counties, and we did it in Rio Arriba, Taos, and Santa Fe, and actually Los Alamos. We wanted to see if this worked with families who had resources and poor families. Does this work? And it worked across the board. There's a lot of politics nationally and locally around who gets funded at what level, but yes, all the early development we can do, it pays for itself like 15 times over or something like that. I forget the number, but it's huge. It is always a good investment, and I would vote gladly to pay more out of that permanent fund for early development. I don't see a problem.
Yeah. Kristina?
Yeah, I will not only vote for that, but I will be on the front lines getting voters to vote for that as well. You know, as a very, very good friend of mine has said many times, you know, the storm is here, right? So this rainy day fund, like we've got to use it right now for our families, for caregivers, for all the science is there. It's showing us that investments made from 0 to 5, prenatal to 5. That's where, you know, you get the you know, huge return on investment, and it supports communities. I went to work. I was able to work full time because of investments in early childhood education. It's something that I will push for, you know, forever. So yeah, let's
Great.
use it.
The Albuquerque Journal yesterday had an article that reported the governor also favors this. So that's looking really good.
She does. She does.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and here's the thing. Right here in Taos, we have the best models for early childhood education, supports for families, supports, you know, for the professionalization of early childhood education. It's all right here. An incredible program at UNM Taos. We need it. And we can look to Taos as the model for that.
Great. And I'm going to switch right now to a poll so we can go to another section. Thank you both for those answers. Everybody take a moment to look at this. This is supposed to be multiple choice. Please mark the ones you're interested in. And when you're done, hit submit. We're all doing a good job of staying on track. Thank you for your abbreviated answers and the information you're sharing with us. Do we have results? Margie's behind the scenes. She's making all this happen like the Wizard of Oz. Here are our results. And the results from these polls will be sent to the legislators. I think they're also sent out as part of the email. So if you're attending this session and you registered for the session, you will get this information. Jay,
Okay.
I'm going to call
Thanks,
you
Cristy.
back in,
Yep.
and you're up.
See you in a little bit. All right. So we're going to just jump right into this next section. So we're going to talk about the Green Amendment for a moment. I'm sorry, the Green Amendment. It begins the process to amend the New Mexico Constitution to make enforceable our rights as New Mexicans to a clean and healthy environment, including pure water, clean air, healthy ecosystems, and a stable climate, and to the preservation of the natural environment. This amendment prioritizes our state resources for future generations, not as resources for corporate exploitation. Would you support would you support this resolution?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you. Is there anything you want to say about it? I know you guys like to talk, so. You don't have to, I was just kidding with you.
Takes one to know one. That's what I say. That's what I
Okay,
say.
thank you, Susan. All right, so moving right along then. The Energy Transition Act Amendment. So at present, PNM can shift financial liability of up to, we think, about $2 billion from the Four Corners coal operations, Palo Verde nuclear power plant in Arizona, and their other oil and gas investments to the ratepayer. This amendment revises the language to protect the ratepayer from such liabilities. Also, the amendment restores the oversight of the Public Regulation Commission, an elected, well, currently elected body, soon not to be an elected body, not to create a separate system of overseers appointed by the governor. So the good portions of the ETA will remain, right? A high, what we call a renewable portfolio standard, which regulates what the minimum amount of renewables the utilities have to provide, securitization to finance the closure of these dirty coal plants and other dirty assets, and also allows for recovery of some of the costs, transition funds for workers and workforce development. By the way, this bill looks like it's sponsored by Senators Tallman, Cedillo Lopez, Stefanix, and Souls. Do you support this? And I have some more details on it if you want.
You know, they're having a Zoom meeting on that tomorrow. I think I'm going to support it, but I probably know as much about it as you've just said, Jay. And, you know, it appeals to me. I think I'll probably vote for it, but I've got to go to that Zoom meeting and educate myself. I can tell you what COVID has really hurt is the exchange of information. You know, it's just awkward. It's just been awkward this year too.
Right.
You know, you used to meet and used to hear about things, and then you go to another meeting. And so it's really shut down a lot of communication. So I will know more tomorrow after that Zoom meeting. I think I'm going to vote for it, but I don't know everything.
Let me just interject two things then. First is currently the ETA says that whatever PNM or El Paso Electric for that matter says an asset is worth, that's what it's worth. And so that's what the ratepayers have to pay. So ratepayers of PNM have to pay $361 million. Hopefully I got that number right to PNM and whoever's buying them out over the next 25 years. So what normally would have happened is the PRC would have had some hearings about that and said, okay, these are the assets you have, but we think these are the only allowable things that you should be able to charge the ratepayer for. So whatever they got that to, say to $200 million, then they'd have a hearing to say, well, out of that, this amount, maybe half, which is a norm, the ratepayers will have to take care of, and maybe the other half, the utility will have to absorb. So in this case, the ratepayers have to absorb 100%, just so you kind of know one of the big things about it. And the other one is about regulatory oversight, which I just mentioned. And then also the last thing, which is one of the most egregious things that happened, is they have filing deadlines in the ETA of 10 days. So if you actually say P&M could take a year to file something, and then if you want to have something to say about it, you have 10 days. Typically, regulatory filings allow for 30 days. So that's the other big thing that it restores, just so you know, and I'm sure you'll learn more tomorrow.
You should know I usually vote against PNM. I'm just going to say that's kind of how it works on the floor, but I will go to that Zoom and become more educated tomorrow. But it sounds like it's heading where I'm going to vote for it.
Okay.
You're not going to be happy with me, Jay. I am not going to support this amendment. I worked pretty hard with with my colleagues at CVNM, the Sierra Club, a host of other organizations that fought hard for the ETA, and it's doing what it needs to be doing. I am always open to learning about ways we can, improve things, but right now I think it'll take us backwards. And I would love to chat with you more about some of the details that you've got, but for right now, that law is doing what it needs to be doing.
Okay,
and
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough. We'll talk some more about it. I think just want to point out one other thing about this, because I actually know a ton about this topic, is that the ETA is actually a bunch of different things all together. So the renewable portfolio standards is actually one of the things that's actually doing something. The securitization thing is the shifting of costs, and that's where the really big problem comes in. So we can have a conversation about that. And thank you for your openness to have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the concern about securitization is that if you take that out, it will
we're not removing that.
Millions of dollars away from.
We are not removing
communities.
securitization.
Okay.
Just so you know, that's not coming out. That's not the intention at all.
Let's talk more about it.
Please.
But yes, for sure.
Thank you. And I appreciate your thoughts, and I appreciate your willingness to share thoughts that differ from everybody else here. So appreciate that. Okay, so the next thing I'd like to talk about is methane rule changes. Approximately 1.1 million metric tons of CO2 are released every year in New Mexico, equal to 25 coal-powered plants. Unlike other oil and gas states, New Mexico has no requirements prohibiting methane waste and associated pollution from escaping. This uncaptured venting and flaring costs our schools $43 million in revenue from oil and gas, while ruining our air and harming our climate for future generations. This is both an immediate health threat to all New Mexicans and a serious loss of revenue. Will you support the methane rule changes?
Yes.
I think so. It's another bill I don't know a lot about, Jay. So I gotta, I gotta gear up on this too. So, and it's too much is released in the southeast part of our state. I realize it's a huge problem down there. So I tend to vote, with laws that limit oil and gas companies, much to the chagrin of my friends in the southeast. But that's kind of how my voting goes. But
Sure.
I need to know more about that bill too.
Appreciate that. And it's the southeast and the northwest, so the Farmington area down, then
You're right.
Carlsbad area.
You're right.
And I know you two are expected to know so much about so many varied topics. It's pretty crazy. And if your staff, I'm sure, help you really to understand these things better. And that was
all the staff we have.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
I know.
right.
They get no representatives and senators get no staffs unless you're actually a member, a committee chair, right?
Well, then it's only staff during the session.
Right.
You still don't get staff when you're an interim committee, unless you're appropriations or something, unless you're, really a high flying member of the legislature, unless you're Patty Lundstrom.
This is why it's so important that we do these and that we do these more regularly, because we learn from you, the experts on all these issues. So you gotta keep us informed. And there is, I think with methane rule, we're leaving money on the table by not having strong regulations. And we also, we also need to protect our communities. So that's really important.
And what nobody's saying is we do need a paid state legislature with staff, really, you guys. It's, I used to think it was, I used to think it was like against us, but really it's against you. I don't think I can't do the job I think I should do.
Susan,
it's really me by myself at the computer. Really, that's pretty much what it is. and you're representing 30,000 people and 3 counties, and you try to do the best you can, and you try to keep up on everything, but I think it's a pretty impossible job. And I'm not doing it for me. I'm doing it for the next generation. I'm doing it for Kristina. I mean, I'm really going to work to try and make this, I don't think anybody should get rich being a legislator, but I think you should be able to serve your people in a definitive way.
Great answers, Susan, and we're going to get to that in the lightning round. Hold
Okay,
that
I'll
thought.
shut up.
Voice from beyond. Thank you, Cristy. And I want to say also, Kristina, you mentioned that you want to do more town halls. We as a group, you know who we are. We are very happy to do more of these in the future. Please call on us. We will be happy to do everything we can to facilitate that.
Great. Yeah, probably not during the session.
Yes, of course.
But I mean, who knows? I don't know.
Well, like I said, let us know. We will do what we can.
Open to anything.
Okay. So the next one is on oil and gas bonding increases. With the likelihood of more than 20,000 abandoned wells or vertical wells due to the low international price of oil, it is necessary to establish a cleanup bonding rule for future wells. So the impact of abandoned wells will not result in billions of environmental cleanup for our state. And I've seen numbers anywhere from $5 to $20 billion in cleanup costs. So the question is, would you support an increase in bonding for all new wells to protect the communities and the environment of New Mexico and to ensure our citizens do not have to pay for the cleanup of irresponsible extractors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Devil's in the
This
details.
is a huge issue in mining too. This is not just gas and oil. It's a huge issue in abandoned mines,
Right.
and cleaning those up too. And that should be the corporation's cost, really. It has to be. It can't be put on the public.
Right. So all extractive industries, and that's
Exactly.
Totally agree.
Exactly.
Okay. So we have a little bit more left here. We're not going to get to all of it. I'm going to try to do 2 more here. The first one is the Produced Water Act, or is what I call fracking waste, to be more accurate at what it is. Amendments to last year's bill will explicitly prohibit the use of fresh water in oil and gas well drilling and prohibit the use of fracking waste, otherwise known as produced water, on roads and agricultural land, and make discharge and spills of produced water illegal. The use of toxic wastewater will have to be the cost of industries. The use of toxic wastewater will have the cost. This question is said wrong. I apologize. So the point is that they'll have to use. They'll have to reuse their own wastewater to actually continue to be able to extract, and they don't want to share the costs with local farmers or communities. So the question is, will you support this bill to restrict toxic wastewater?
Yeah, produced water is gross. We don't know what is, what's in that because you don't have to release the information.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that we're protecting communities. Come on.
That's actually a loophole at the federal level called the Halliburton loophole, right? Which restricts us from actually knowing what's in the wastewater, which actually
That's insanity.
fluids.
Yeah, that's insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to be honest. I voted for that bill with Nathan Small, introduced it in the House, and it was really a big push. I was freshman legislator. It was a big push by the Democratic caucus. Chris and I said, in retrospect, you come in as a new legislator. This was a brand new bill. Your Democratic leadership is saying we should go on this. And I think that's one of the mistakes I made. I'll just be honest. I voted for that bill, and I wish I hadn't have now. I'm learning not to always follow the Democratic caucus. I mean, I do when I agree with them, but I don't have to be loyal to every bill. And I think you learn that as a legislator being there. And, there are a couple bills I voted for that I said, doing it all over again, I wouldn't have voted for it.
Thank you for sharing that, Susan, because I'm looking at my bills. I'm like, ooh, are these all the right ones, right? If you do get support, especially with 5 bills, the leadership wants you to carry things. So thank you for that, because it'll help me take a better look at the bills that I've got on the table.
Thank you. And
you're welcome.
We appreciate you being honest about what happens in the past, because it's really, I think, a really important for a moral character of our representatives to actually be able to say they made a mistake in the past and they recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So the next thing is on local choice energy. Local choice energy will allow any city, municipality, or tribe in New Mexico to pool their electricity demand and create a local utility, which means local communities are in control of who owns their energy, where it comes from, and what happens with energy profits. Will you support local choice energy bill?
Can you tell me how this will affect like the different, regional, rural electric cooperatives? Can you tell me what's the impact on that? Because I don't know enough about this bill either.
Yeah, so I think this is just about our two big utilities, actually three, but the two big ones, PNM and El Paso Electric, to allow cities like Santa Fe and Albuquerque and maybe the county and Las Cruces if they want to. And what it does is allows the cities to say, we're going to decide where our electricity comes from. And they'll still have to pay actually the local, like the PNMs and the El Paso Electrics to actually distribute the electricity for them, but they'll be able to determine where it comes from. And I know this is like one of the more complicated things about our utility structures is that there's what I call a PNM tax or an El Paso Electric tax. It's around 9.5%. So like everything that they do, like PNM's building some new solar facilities, which is awesome, and a storage facility. But the ratepayers are gonna have to pay whatever the cost of that is, plus maintenance, plus the tax, plus the 9.4 cents or 9.575% gross profit they're allowed on those facilities. So this is about two things, about allowing folks to decide where their energy comes from, whether it's up the street or from eastern New Mexico to get wind. And it's about also letting the communities decide how to basically democratizing energy. Let me just leave it at that.
Mhm. Good.
I got to tell you, I'm not sure well, I don't know. I have a lot of problems with the rural electric co-op that I'm in. Hemes Electric is, I say that I have the best and the worst electrical
Yes.
co-ops in the state. So I
Yes,
get
you
to
do.
see it from all sides. Again, I
Okay.
didn't know about this bill, something I have to study, Jay. I don't know.
Thanks, appreciate that.
And I don't know enough about it either. I really need to understand and how it would have an impact on, our rural cooperatives. I just need to know more information.
Again, I think that's really fair. There are so many varied things you all are expected to know about and be expert on to actually vote on. And so I think it's very fair. And, it won't affect us up here in Taos with the best co-op in the state,
Exactly.
Electric.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm not going to do anything. I would call Luis up. Here's what I would do. I'd call Luis up and I'd say, Luis, how should I vote on this? That's what I do. And he'll tell me, and then I'll vote that way,
Okay. Well, call me too, okay?
Okay, I'll call you too, Jay. Anybody else who wants me to call him on this, I'll call. I am the least technical person at the
Great.
legislature, really.
Okay.
No worries. Thank you for that. So it's time for polling. We're gonna do some polling. We didn't get to all the questions in this section just because of timing. So please, you may not know some about, I don't know if we missed anything in here. Actually, we end up having this covers everything we talked about. So again, choose anything, any one or any or all of these that you want to select as things you favor. We didn't actually get to two things that I wanted to, but that's the way it goes. I'm gonna bring up Cristy while we're waiting. Let this go about 15 more seconds or so. Okay, let's go ahead and show the results. Okay, I mean, as like I would have thought, the Green Amendment is on top, the methane rule. Actually, one of the things we didn't talk, right, and reduce fracking water versus wastewater, produced water. Lots of good information here. Please have a look at it. We're gonna pull it off the screen in a second and move on to the next section. Okay.
Okay.
Cristy, you're up.
Okay, heading to the lightning round. I'm going to reach back just for a second. Senator Cedillo Lopez is supporting a fracking moratorium for 1 year, which will allow study of the effects of fracking in our state. Would you support that? Yes or no?
That's a maybe.
Okay.
I'm gonna see if it gets to the House. I don't think she's gonna get it through the Senate, if you want to know the truth. We'll see. We'll see. Things are changing. I don't know.
Fair enough. Next one. Decrim abortion, the statute from 1969. Yes or no?
Of course, of course.
Yes.
Okay. Paid sick leave for workers.
Yes, Chris Chandler is carrying that bill. It's going to be,
Yes.
it's very important.
And you too,
Especially right
Christine.
now.
Yes,
Yes.
especially right
Okay.
now.
You're going to love this one. Predatory lending caps.
Yes.
You mentioned this earlier. Reducing the loan fees from 175% down to 36%.
I'm carrying
those
that in the
support-
House. I'm
Yes.
carrying that bill in the House.
Okay, this is the
And I
really
support
easy
that bill.
section. Good. Paid legislature. If you
Yes.
supported paid legislature, and I can give you all the details, but we would like to join the other 49 states that do pay their legislatures, and perhaps some staff as well during session. So you're both yes on
Yes.
that. How about this one? Ban private prisons.
Yes. I'm
Yes.
definitely for that.
Yep.
We made big mistakes years ago.
And local
Okay.
communities are always on the hook and pay way more than they
Yes.
ever intended.
Okay, good to know. Another
Yes.
favorite, end of life options bill.
Yes.
Would you support
I want to be
that?
able to make that choice personally. That is my personal choice that I think belongs to me.
I agree.
And you, Christina? Yes.
Yes.
Okay, boy, this makes it really easy to get back on schedule here.
And
And now we have another poll, I think. Yes, lightning round poll. Please mark these, as many as you want.
Can't believe the interest rate is up to 175%. That's insanity.
yeah, you know,
It
and I
used to be 1,000.
Yes.
It used to be 1,000. They thought they were doing a big deal when they pulled it down to 175.
And I just want to say I was in one of the committee hearings when they were talking about lowering it, and to listen to the people, the companies talk about why they need 175%. It was really gross.
Sickening.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I know. I know all the best lobbyists. I'll just tell you guys, this is the feed bill for the House and the Senate. All the lobbyists put a lot of money in. Kristina, you probably won't get any money from them, and I don't get any money from them. But you know, they shell out, and by God, they have it because they charge 175% interest on really poor people. And you know what, you guys, 50% of our population is illiterate, below the 6th grade reading level. So even if they could read a contract, they can't read the contracts they're signing. All they want is that money over the table.
Wow. Here are the poll results. So we've got 85% of you favoring the decrim abortion bill. Thank you for that. And all of these rank very high, above 80%.
Yeah, it's interesting
Yeah,
because
good.
these are all things that affect us individually
Yes.
and our neighbors and friends. All of these issues.
Yes. Now we're
Thank
going to
you.
go over to the open chat questions. These are questions that were submitted by our audience. Jay and I will take turns with that.
Yeah, and you know, I just want to thank you both again for your thoughtful responses to all these things. I know that's what we're all here for tonight, and we really appreciate it.
Good.
You want to start with this, Cristy, or
I'm looking to see which one I want to pick. Let's see.
okay, just pick one, or I'll pick one, and we'll get started.
Okay, we've covered some of these already in your responses. Thank you for that. What is your plan to support our public schools here, especially independent charter schools that serve students in our underprivileged rural community?
Well, you know, we have put a lot more money. Here's what happened. We put a lot of money into education. We were trying to do all this stuff. And then, you know, COVID hit. Kids, you know, now everybody's really struggling. Families are just really struggling with kids. Parents, the kids are struggling. I asked the governor, just give all the teachers a vaccine and let's get kids back in school March 11th. Really, I think they should be the next group to be vaccinated and get safe, and then open our school kids. Our kids are just really struggling with isolation, lack of food, really. A lot of kids get food at school and just care. I mean, you know, our teachers care about our kids, and I really hope we can do that soon. They've been way too long out of school, and we need to do that. You know, I know the charter schools in Taos. I support them. All charter schools are not equal. I'll tell you that. Some charter schools are just as bad as some of our worst public schools. So I think we ought to apply the same requirements, and we do. But yeah, I tend to support charter schools. But I'm really gonna, I guess, focus on public education because that's where most of our kids are.
Kristina?
So I guess the short answer is, I will support everything we can to support educators and to support, families with school-age children. The longer answer is, in all the details, right? Increased, funding for professionalization, better metrics of evaluation, more local control. Charter schools are public schools, and full disclosure, my children are at a charter school, and they are bound by similar regulations and standards and practices, and the curriculum. So I think that we need to do everything we can to support our local schools, and what I'm heartened by are programs like the community school funding. Right? What does it take to make a school a community school? What are the things that, how can we empower educators, and our parents and caregivers so that they, they're more engaged in that school, growing local food at those schools, having, school navigators. Those are the kinds of things that we should be moving toward and embracing and funding. Taos has done a great job in bringing funding for community schools. We need more of it. Every school should have several navigators, to navigate housing, the medical system, all of that. We need more of that because schools are central to our community. So let's make the right kinds of investments in them. That's what I think.
I would like to say, though, I worry about educational equity. I'm just going to, we say we have the best equalization formula. We don't. I was looking at 2 community schools in Albuquerque that came, and they're wonderful schools. But guess what? Each of those kids get another $14,000. I mean, really, that's how that money. I mean, I don't know which Taos schools aren't community schools, but the money that pours into a community school is substantial. I think we're anything but equal. I mean, if we're going to have community schools, I think we should do statewide community schools, and not just the lucky winners here and there, which is kind of how it works right now. So I have a real thing about educational equity in this state, and that's what I'm going to work toward.
Can I just quickly touch on the vaccinations? Right now, if educators in Taos schools want to be vaccinated, they're in line to be vaccinated, I think probably as we speak this week, right, or next week, but they can get vaccinated. But I agree that that it's not just educators who need to be vaccinated if we want to send our children back to school. I have children. Every illness I've ever gotten has come from them. So grubby little hands. I love them, but we need to think. We need to think about sort of who and how this vaccination effort rolls out, and the fact that I think Taos County has the lowest vaccination rate of any county in New Mexico.
That's so cool.
I didn't know
For
that.
anything.
Okay, so the next question, I'm going to skip over a bunch of this precursor to it. It talks about how Taos County has long experienced crisis levels of poverty and food insecurity. And of course, a lot of other things, including affordable housing. So this question comes from Pascual Maestas, one of our town's counselors. Would you be willing to introduce a bill amending Chapter 7, Article 9 of the New Mexico Administrative Code, that was Chapter 7, Article 9, to include an exemption of gross receipts tax for temporary emergency housing at lodging establishments?
Say that last line, to include a what?
An exemption.
That's a long question, Jake.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry, and it's very
Okay.
technical. Blame
Wow.
Pasqualito, okay? To include an exemption of gross receipts tax for temporary emergency housing at lodging establishments, right? So temporary emergency housing at lodging establishments.
So is this for, like hotels that are providing COVID relief don't have to charge the nonprofit that is housing folks there?
That's the way I understand it too.
That it sounds reasonable, but we also have to think about what the fiscal impacts are to the town and the county for not getting that GRT. So Pasquale, like, let's talk about this offline. In theory, yes, let's figure out what the details are.
So we're talking about a homeless family. You have a hotel that will put up a homeless family, or maybe 3 or 4, and then charge the state for their fees. That's what we're talking about here.
That's my understanding of the question. Yes.
We just got a pathway shelters established in Espanola. First time we've had a shelter here. So, boy, it is really tough, and certainly, I think some of this COVID money we're going to be able to use to do that. This 4.7 billion that's coming into the state, because we've had such a direct crisis in with families, losing mortgages and homes and rents. And I think we need to do something, Pasquale. I think we may be able to accomplish this faster with this COVID money that is really already here. And there will be money for that in that bill. I know there's money for that in that stimulus package. So see what we can do.
Thank
For
you.
these kinds
Are you going to be
of,
on tax and
highly
revenue? That's a good bill for tax and revenue.
I want to be on tax and revenue. Go make some
Christine, if
phone
you're on
calls.
that, that's just a bill.
Call the speaker.
Call the speaker. No, just put it in. They'll probably do it. Good idea, Pasquale. It's a good idea.
Okay, we're
Pasquale, please
almost
send
out
me
of time,
that
so
info.
I'm going to claim the mic back here for a quick question. This is from John Usury at New Mexico MC in
John.
El Rito. Considering the danger to our community and watersheds presented by catastrophic wildfires, are you promoting any legislation to support forest restoration and watershed management? These programs could be a source of sustainable jobs and economic development in our communities, as well as addressing climate change.
John, that's a great idea.
Yes.
I'm not I'm not carrying a bill in that. I think what we need in the north is we need some kind of state agency that oversees the watersheds, the rivers, the sequías. We have no coordinating effort in the north to talk about water. We really don't. So when a river runs through, starts up in the mountains and runs through Sipapu, and then it goes through state forest and national forest, then it goes through a tribal community, and then it goes through Dixon, and then it goes past my house. There is no one who oversees the stewardship of that river. And we have no overriding agency that looks at water and makes recommendations, as opposed to the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy and the Elephant Butte Irrigation District. They look out for water in their areas, and they have policies and ways of overseeing and management watershed. There is a lot of legislation going on, John, with Melanie Stansberry to rewrite water law in our state. It's not ready because
It's not ready yet.
It's so complex.
So I just got a text message from Representative Nathan Small asking if I would carry, literally, as we're talking, if I would carry legislation that would amend the Natural Heritage Conservation Act and the NLPA. Those are both mechanisms for funding under MNERD, Energy, Minerals, Natural Resources, to focus on landscapes, ecosystem protection. So I don't know what the language looks like yet, but I'm really excited about this kind of thing, because these are the vehicles for investments in in wildland, fire protection. Jana has said a couple times here, about how our firefighters, wildland firefighters need a lot of support. They're doing a lot of COVID relief right now and support in community, but we are one more season away from catastrophic wildfire. And if we have that in the Sangres here, we are toast. Our water is gone. So we need to be super mindful of it. I love the idea of developing a vehicle, a pot of money, and a place, a vessel to put it in, so that we can bring in federal funding, but also there's a ton, millions and millions of dollars in philanthropic funding in Taos to manage our watersheds. So, we can do that through the state. We can provide, better salaries and supports for those wildland fighters, and really, do the planning, community engaged planning work that we need so that we can protect our water and our land.
That's great.
So hopefully I'll see what the bill is, and hopefully it'll be a good one.
Okay, so one of the questions from our chat came up from Victoria Gamble. What are your thoughts on sentencing a juvenile to an extremely long adult sentence? Would you support giving them a chance at parole if they have proven to have rehabilitated themselves?
Yes, I think we're putting far too many people in jail. I'm just done with it. COVID has helped because they have to keep people out of jail because they can't protect them health-wise. Rio Riba's done a good job of that, but we're working. Moma Estes is working on bills to kind of go in this direction. And as a state, I think we need to turn our prisons into public prisons, and we need to put less people in jail, certainly juveniles.
Thank you.
We had
there's a
go ahead.
Sorry, Kristina.
So there are a number of criminal justice reform packages going through. There's a big package going through with Maestas and Micaela Cadena. So those folks are really leading the efforts here, including taking a long look at the juvenile restorative justice possibilities and opportunities. So I really support that.
Thank you.
We probably have about 40 questions that we're not going to get to. I apologize to our attendees for that, but y'all have done a great job at keeping up. One quick question: would there be any funding at the state level for recycling programs? Most of us here in Taos County really miss the ability to recycle our plastics and glass and etc. Any chance on that?
I don't know, but I drove down to Santa Fe and dumped all my stuff there, and I was grateful for it, though I really couldn't reach it very well. So I'd like to see something, but I don't know if that can happen at the state level. Susan?
I've never seen a bill proposing that, if you want to know the truth. That doesn't mean there hasn't been one. I just don't think it's probably something I should work on. I didn't think about it, but our waste, we don't even have enough trash trucks in Espanola and Rio Riba County, and things are expensive. They're like $250,000. We don't have a good way of managing waste in this state, and we've never really put very much money into it. So that's something we could do. That's something we need to do. And maybe we could do it with some of the, I think Biden's really going to come in with some great infrastructure money and projects. And I'm just keeping an eye on this next presidential, I can hardly wait for them to come to power and to put out the plans that they're talking about. And I think we have a great governor that can complement our federal electorate. And I think we're going to see some big changes. And I think he's really going to make the promise of infrastructure work. He gets that. And those are really jobs. That's all just jobs. That's what you're talking about. That's why it's so valuable.
Jay, one more?
I just want to make a quick suggestion. The real problem that I see, recycling is an issue, but the bigger problem is packaging. The way things are packaged in our society is disgusting and wasteful. There's too much plastics, and I personally don't buy things that are overly packaged. And I think that's something we should look at as a state, and I'm sure there are other states that are doing this as well. But
Right. Especially in
Thanks for that.
procurement, state procurement,
yeah, there you go.
state
Thank you.
agencies. Yeah. Water bottles
Um,
everywhere.
Yeah, so we have a question here from Peggy de Scoville. It's about people with second homes, and I'm just going to paraphrase it. She's suggesting that we have an additional tax on people who have second homes, which I know a lot of communities do across the country, a second home property tax. Are you guys in favor of such a thing? Do you have any thoughts on it?
I have a lot of thoughts on it. I think that we should be looking at it. I think that doesn't have a chance in hell in this session. I think every year someone brings it up and it fails, but we need to have a real discussion about what it does to our communities, right? And I think that the property tax rate is kind of criminally low. You know, it's laughable in some cases, right? People coming from all kinds of, you know, from other states, and they think that their yearly tax bill is, you know, is like the monthly fee, and they laugh. We've got to do something about it.
Thank you.
I think it's an area for tax revenue.
Get me on that committee, Susan.
I
You
have
guys
no
are great.
power. Don't ask me. You know. Talk to the speaker.
You
Great.
guys are
Well,
really great. I really appreciate it. We have a promise to our attendees to end on time. So there are a couple of announcements that I just need to make very quickly, and then we'll say goodnight. First of all, thanks to the co-hosting organization, especially Taos United, Taos County Democratic Party, a few other groups that joined in. Behind the scenes tonight, we have Marjorie Lucky, Diane Schifrin, Danielle Friedman, and Jay and Paula. And it's just been an amazing crew to work with. You didn't see their efforts, but you heard them. So please give your thanks to them. Thank you all who pay attention and participate in the legislature. Again, government for the people requires the people to participate. We need you now, all of you on this call, to go to the Retake Our Democracy page and fill out the survey. You'll see on the right-hand side of your screen at that page, the legislative priority bills for 2021. We're going to ask you to do 3 things. Complete the survey so that your voice can be shared with the senators and the legislatures from around the state. Right now we have over 900 responses, but we really want to increase that rate. We also would like you to sign up to be an advocate for 1 or 2 of the priority bills. You will see a list of all those priority bills. We have 16 in the first section, and I think 14 in the second section. And check those out. Also, if you're really interested in one of those bills, then pull down the 1-page summary for that bill and make yourself informed. And legislators, you can do that also. That'll give you a good progressive view of how we hold those bills. And lastly, we need you to sign up. If you're really a wonk, like some of us, we'd love you to sign up to be an advocate for these bills. As Jay said, we're not going to the Capitol this year. We're going to be annoying you by phone calls and texts and through Zoom meetings. So please consider signing up. We have these teams in every single Senate district now. And we're making a conscious effort to meet with every senators, and with you guys. We got lucky because we said that was so great. Let's do it with our reps. And thank you for doing that with us tonight. Retake Our Democracy. Thanks everybody for showing up. Thank you for our team, and have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you both. Thanks everybody for showing up today. Good to see you all.
Thank you.